play, a musical, in fact. Here on Community Matters, we want to meet Mark. We want to see how he did that. We're going to know about the play. We're calling this, well, we have multiple titles for it, but the primary one is Allegiance, the musical. And I'm also calling it Evolution of a Broadway play, Evolution of a musical, because we're going to learn how you do this. So take notes, because you too can make a musical on Broadway. Just listen carefully. Welcome to the show,
Thank
Mark.
you so much for having me here.
Great to have you. Really important to have you. So just for reference, you should write it down. AllegianceMusical.com is the website for Allegiance. Also, if you have any questions or comments you want to make on Twitter, our Twitter handle is ThinkTechHI. We'd love to hear from you, and we will answer any question you pose. So, Mark, I don't know anybody else who's a producer. Actually, I met Harold Prince one time. Remember him?
Yeah, I would love to be as successful as
he really did some stuff, yeah. But aside from that, I haven't met anybody who actually produced a Broadway show, especially a musical, which is more complicated, right?
It's hard work, yes. There's no doubt about it. And it's been a project that our team has been working on for 8 years now.
8 years. Yeah. So you're an MD, you're a surgeon practicing here in Honolulu, and
Correct.
one day something happened to make you want to do this. Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça?
You know, going all the way back to high school, I was fortunate enough to be classmates with, at Iolani School with Chris Lee, who became very accomplished in show business. He was the president of Sony TriStar Pictures, and we stayed close after that. And even after he left Hollywood and moved back to Honolulu, we renewed our friendship, and he would periodically introduce me to some of his talented show business connections. One of them was a gentleman named Jay Kuo. Jay's a really interesting guy because he actually is an attorney. Stanford Law, was practicing law in the Bay Area and writing appeals for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And one day he did what most of us don't have the guts to do. And he got to his 40s and he said, that's it. I'm giving up my law practice. I'm going to pursue my dream. So he dropped his law practice, moved to New York, started writing music. And you know, his initial attempts they weren't perfect, and so they didn't really get anywhere. But one day, through very chance meeting, he and his business partner, Lorenzo Tioni, were in a Broadway show next to George Takei. And in this particular musical...
Sitting in the theater.
Sitting in the theater, just randomly together, watching this show. And George got very emotional in one scene in that show, between interaction between a father and a son. And so during intermission, they went up and they introduced themselves. They said, Mr. Takei, we're fans. We saw you get emotional at this scene. Can you tell us why? And he said, well, it reminded me of my own interaction between my father and myself, because he felt so helpless that he wasn't able to protect us from what happened to us during World War II, when all of us were interned during the conflict. And you know, my friends are educated people. Jay is an attorney, Lorenzo, his business partner, is a technology guy. They're very well educated, and they didn't understand what he was talking about, and they had to learn about it, and that motivated them to say this was such an important part of American history, the internment of an entire race of people who are American citizens because of fear and hysteria. And it caused them to write a very moving story, Allegiance, which is the story of one family and what happens to them. And Jay wrote the music and the lyrics for it. And when they sent me the script and they sent me the score and I saw it, I went, my God, this is magical. It was a different feeling altogether. And at that point, I pledged my support to help them. You know, 3 people starting from scratch saying, let's go try and pursue this dream of getting this on a stage. And yeah, that was 8 years ago, and here we are today.
Why don't we take a minute and just talk about the track of the play, the storyline.
So the play follows a family, the Kimura family, who has a brother who's an all-American young man, except that, you know, he's of Japanese ancestry. His sister, who stays at home, good, taking care of the family. The father, who's a widower, he lost his wife. He's a farmer. And together they make a life for themselves in California. And they have dreams and aspirations, and then the war happens. And immediately they are all interned into an internment camp in Heart Mountain, Wyoming. And it's difficult for them, obviously. The whole thing is difficult. And what's interesting about our story is we focus on this family and how they choose different paths to deal with this. The son believes that the answer to this is to be more patriotic, to prove that we're better Americans, and that we can earn back the respect of the country by doing that.
And that's the profile that people in general
Right.
take away. I mean, that's what history has taught us in school, that the Japanese are very stoic and remain patriotic throughout.
Right. Join the 442, fight for the country, show your bravery, win back your loyalty that way. So he does that. His sister falls in love in the camp with Frankie Suzuki, who's an attorney, and gets his law practice ripped away from him by all of this, is in camp, feels this is a gross injustice of the Constitution of the United States, and decides that he is going to battle this. He's going to resist any effort to draft him. He's going to resist the government's call for everyone just to be quiet and stay in the camp. And the sister in this family falls in love with him, and together they create this band of resistors in the camp that protests the treatment that they're undergoing.
Yeah, and this creates a contention in the family.
It rips the family apart, actually, and that a rift that persists into the present day.
Because the play is epical. The play covers all the way from then till now.
Right, it's a flashback. So the older Sam reviews his life from the present into what happened. And at the end, you know, the power of love, even after all those years of being apart, reconciles the family back together.
Ah, what a story. I think I was telling you before, a lot of people don't know that there were two paths you could take in Heart Mountain. You could be patriotic, remain patriotic, no matter what the government did to you, or you could take a position on it and disagree. And I think a lot of people don't realize there was that crowd that was disagreeing. And
Right.
you captured that piece of history in the play.
And the beauty of it is they're both right? They're both American values. They're both morally correct. And they're entirely opposite paths. And it shows what how good people can go in completely opposite directions in extreme circumstances, take entirely different paths, and history can judge them both equally well, which is what happens here.
Yeah. Well, it was really, I mean, I'm talking like I know the play because I saw the play. I saw the video that you made of the early, what do you call it, first run performance in San Diego a couple of years ago.
Right.
When you were just putting it together.
That's a regional, and so all musicals go through a period of evolution. You go from when you first wrote the musical and try and get support to produce it up. You do what's called stage readings, where you hire some actors just to stand in front of a microphone and act it out and sing the part so you can hear if it works. And then eventually you put it together in workshops where you can add staging, positioning on the screen, choreography, that sort of thing. And then ultimately you have to test it out on audiences, so you do a regional. The sports analogy is it's the minor leagues. So you go to a well-known theater somewhere in a different place that's not Broadway or not London, and you test it out in front of real audiences, and you see how you do. And we were very fortunate to run it in San Diego at the Old Globe, which is a very successful theater. And we ran for 3 months. It sold out every performance. And that showed us that we had potential and promise to have a Broadway hit on our hands.
Yeah. Okay, so now you had a lot of the stars that are opening in Broadway, and I want to say November 8th is the opening.
Correct.
That's the formal opening with the lights and the cameras and all that.
Right.
November 8th, and I will be there. Okay, Mark, I'm going to be there.
Terrific.
I'm going.
Terrific.
So you have the same stars. You had them, at least a number of them, in San Diego, right? So why don't you talk about the stars?
Yeah, there's no way you can talk about our show without talking about the stars, because we have some amazing ones. So first of all, the top two billed are arguably two of the most famous Asians in the world today. George Takei, known initially from his days in Star Trek as Mr. Sulu, has now come from that role, which he was immensely successful, to being even more successful as being kind of the social media guru of all time. I mean, he has almost 9 million followers on Facebook. His Twitter account is huge. And the thing about his Facebook page is it's not somebody goes there, likes it, and it never goes back. They share, comment, and post on his page more than any other page that exists on Facebook today.
Wow.
And for 2 years, he's led that category. So a really advocate for social justice, the voice of the masses, that's George, and he's our star.
He's there. He's on the, let's see.
Yeah, there he is.
Second one from the left.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And, you know, and he's awesome, and he really is the person that his social media persona is. He really is for the little guy. One story I love to tell about him is while we were running in San Diego, it's a tough thing, you know, he's in his late 70s, and we're running this show every night, night after night after night. And when the performance was over, he'd go outside, and the entire audience would be standing in line for a chance to say hi to George. He would stand there every night and shake hands with every single person who wanted to walk by and say hello. That's George.
He's also got a very stoic quality about him. It's the very quality that's present in the play.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. He's terrific, and we're really lucky to have him not only be our star, but the inspiration really behind the story. Our female lead is Lea Salonga, who...
I have a crush on her.
Yeah,
I want to disclose, full disclosure.
I think anyone who likes music, loves, has heard of, respects, admires Lea Salonga and her beautiful voice. I mean, from everything she's done, all the way from winning a Tony Award for, you know, being the first Kim in Miss Saigon, to being the voice of Disney when she was Jasmine in Aladdin and Mulan in Mulan, in those Disney movies. I think a lot of us grew up hearing her voice.
Yeah.
And then, you know, her range has spanned across generations, right? In the 10th anniversary of Les Miserables, she played Eponine, and in the 25th anniversary, she was Fantine. And she was just extraordinary as both characters. So we're so lucky to have Lea Salonga as our female lead. And then our young up-and-coming star is a young man named Telly Leung. Telly is well known amongst the younger crowd because he was a recurring character in Glee, where he played West, part of the Warblers, which are the rivals to the Glee school. And he's very well known there, but it actually has a long storied Broadway history as well, where he was in the closing cast of Rent, and therefore was in the movie Rent. He's played on Godspell, Flower Drum Song, and even was in one of the shows of Wicked as Bach. So again, a very young but very experienced already on Broadway.
In many ways, the force of his performance, his personality drives the show.
Exactly.
He's kind of the protagonist in some ways.
Right. He plays Sam Kimura, patriotic, fight for the country, show that we're loyal Americans, and joins the 442.
Yeah. Oh, I want to see it again.
Yes. And it's from the version you saw, Jay, we've improved it dramatically. And the reason for that is, you know, we showed that, we did that regional in 2012 in San Diego. And even after that, even after we showed our success, there's a period of waiting before you can get a Broadway theater. You can't just declare, I'm going to be a Broadway show. You need to have a Broadway theater in order to be a Broadway show. And there are 40 somewhat Broadway theaters. They're all controlled by 3 families that own all of the space. And in order to get one of those theaters, you have to prove your worth and your quality to one of those families. We were very, very lucky to get the Longacre Theater from the Schubert family, which is the largest conglomerate of Broadway theater owners. But we didn't get that until this year. So we had 3 years to wait for that time to come. And during those 3 years, we've done rewrite after rewrite, both of the music and the story, based on everything we learned by showing it the first time in San Diego. The things that worked, things that didn't work, things that could make the story of the individual characters stronger, things that made our love stories stronger. And we've done so much work on all of that. I can't wait to...
to make a comparison from then till now. But, you know, after we come back from this break, Mark, I'd like to ask you for some examples of those tune-ups, just so that our viewers can understand the nuances involved. That's Mark Mugiishi. He's a doctor here in Honolulu, and he's the producer of Allegiance, a Broadway musical play about the life and times in Hart Mountain, an internment camp during World War II. Here on Community Matters, we're talking about the evolution of that play, Allegiance, the musical. You can look at allegiancemusical.com. We'll be right back with more.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on Think Tech Hawaii. Center Stage airs every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and of course you can check out our archives on YouTube or on Think Tech Hawaii anytime you like. Why should you do that? Because this is an arts show that I believe is making a difference in lives. We talk with artists of various ilk. We talk with painters and writers, playwrights, novelists, poets, sculptors, dancers, you name it, directors, actors, of course. And we don't only talk about what people do, but we talk about how they do it. And my favorite part of the conversation, we talk about why they do it. And it's really common on this show to hear people say, wow, I didn't think about it that way. And it's very common to hear people afterwards who have seen the show say the same thing. And I hear all the time that people are inspired by the conversations that we have. So why don't you join us and be inspired too? That's Center Stage on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. We'll see you Center Stage.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Mark Mugiishi, and we're talking about his play, Allegiance, which is opening in Broadway in the Longacre Theater on November 8th. That's a Saturday night.
Sunday night.
Sunday night, okay. And so if you're not doing anything, in the first part of November, get on the phone and make a reservation, go see, because that's what I'm doing. I'm going there.
Right, we also actually have previews beginning on October 6th, and when people ask me what is a preview, I kind of describe it as, again, using the sports analogy, preseason. So people buy tickets and they still go, and it's a real game, but it's not the regular season yet, as it were. So you can still go see it even as early as October 6th.
Same play.
Same play.
Oh, and you have this great thing. I don't know if it's still in effect, but you go on the website and you can buy a $5 option to buy it. Tell me how that works.
Right, so that was a priority pass, and it's no longer there because now we're actually selling real tickets on telecharge.com or via the box office. But while we were waiting for our home, we thought a great way to get interest in the show was to tell people, look, you can have a chance to buy a place in line, basically, that we would sell you the right to buy a ticket before we even opened the box office or opened online ticket sales. So you could get the best seats on the day you wanted.
Cool.
And we had 20,000 people buy those things,
Cool.
which was great. It also gave us, you know, the feeling that we're headed on the right track, that people really care about coming to see our show once it opens.
I was telling you before the show that I believe that the issues and the moral contentions in this show are perfect for our time. You know, it was all about whether the government was doing the right thing. And the generations coming up now, in fact, everybody really has concerns about whether the government is doing the right thing. So it's an issue that's still very much alive, I think, and people will respond to that.
Absolutely. And in fact, one of the big changes we made from the San Diego version to the current Broadway version is there's a historical character in the show, Mike Masaoka. Mike was the head of the Japanese American Citizens League. He worked with the government to you know, deal with the Japanese community while all this was going on.
Yeah.
And many of his actions were highly controversial back then because some people believed that he was doing what was best for the Japanese community.
A lot of people thought the government bought him off somehow.
Exactly. And in the San Diego version, we decided for the audience that this guy was not good and what he did was wrong and portrayed him as such. So you really had no choice but to say, that was bad.
Yeah.
We took a very different tact. We hired an outstanding character actor, turned him into a pure historical character, delivering the speeches that Mike Masaoka delivered and having the actions of the play follow those things, and really letting people decide for themselves with their own moral compass. Is what this guy doing good or bad? Is it the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? And again, bringing that really important moral question, how do good people act when the situations are extreme? Yeah. And, you know, and there's a lot of discussion that can come out around that.
And we all need to address that question because it could happen to us the same way.
Exactly.
Well, can you think of any other nuanced changes that you made in that time? I remember how from the San Diego regional till, oh, I don't know, now I suppose, well, till a year ago anyway, you were making little changes hither and yon, trying to tune it up.
Right, I think one of the most dramatic changes we made is the decision we made that in order to get people to really care about this whole time in history and everything that happened, because it's going to be new to them, we can't overwhelm them with facts. We have to appeal to the emotion about it. So in order to do that and make people care, they have to care about our characters. So we now spend a huge part of the first act, including revising the music and the story and everything, to really build strong characters that you will find someone in that show that you go, I like that person, I care about that person, I'm like that person.
Yeah.
So between all of them, we now develop them. They're fully, they're characters that really everyone can appreciate. And so now when things start to happen, you start to care about that part of history. And I think that is you'll see that is a really big and positive change to our story.
Yeah, and I can just see George Takei. I know I would like him to whatever he did, and Leah Salonga too. And they must be pretty central in this first act.
Absolutely.
To introduce the audience to the household, the Kimura household.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the father is an important one because the father is that traditional, stoic Japanese man. In fact, we have a song in the show called Gamang, where that's the anthem of the Japanese people. Whatever happens to you, you just show dignity and just bear it. And but yet, his point to the family is, they are taking our dignity away, and so at some point you just say enough. And he's the one that kind of pushes his daughter, Leah Salonga, toward this resistor and their decision to act the way they act.
I remember Gamon. That was a very touching part of the play. Mm-hmm. And it was an emotional experience to watch that. And I didn't know the word,
Yeah.
but I learned the word.
Yeah.
I think everybody will walk out of the theater with the sound of that song.
I think so. There's a few songs I think that are really, really powerful, emotionally touching, that will cause you to remember them not only for their message, but actually for the music, because Jay is such a talented songwriter. His music is powerful. It runs through your head when it's over. And I think for musicals, that's a really important thing. People need to leave there with some song running around in their head, and I think we have several candidates for that.
So as a producer, you get to see these changes, maybe initiate some of them, encourage them, and vet them, and you get to live in the story. You get to live in the play. I mean, every element of the music and the, I'm going to say libretto, I guess, what do you call a libretto? I guess it is a libretto, is yours. And well, it's something you've worked on, something you've shaped. And I wonder what it's like for an MD to change his way of thinking, so you envelop yourself in aside from all the business issues, which we'll talk about, to envelop yourself in the evolution of this great work of art. How do you do that? I mean, how do you change your mind, a way of thinking?
Well, I think you're correct that I love to kibitz, but I think my biggest contribution to the show is to understand that the real creative talent is with our creatives. So I throw out suggestions, I beg them to do things that personally I like, and they're always willing to consider my thoughts, but at the end of the day, they come up with what's best for the show, and I go along with it. And so that includes our 3 book writers, which are Lorenzo Tioni, who's our lead producer, Jay Kuo, my friend, and Mark Aceto, who's an award-winning author, who we brought in to help us refine and revise the book. Our director is Stafford Arima, who's an amazingly talented. This will be his very first big Broadway show, although he has been an Olivier nominee for a West End production. He's phenomenal. And then Lynn Shankel is our musical arranger. So you take those creatives, and the things that they do are amazing. And then I just have to throw a shout out to Danielle Worrell, who's our stage director. You saw the staging we had in San Diego. That was done on a shoestring budget, because when you go out and you do your regional, that's my job as a producer. Don't spend on that. Don't spend on that. Save every penny. And she built that simple yet intricate set that really caught the mood of all the different phases of the story. Now we're giving her a real budget, millions of dollars to build something that's worthy of Broadway, and she's going to hit it out of the ballpark.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, it must be in process right now,
Yes, yes, we've been in pre-production with design and all that now for the last couple of months, and it's amazing. It's going to be amazing.
It's like it gets more exciting all the time, and every day it's more exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So talk about the business end of things for a minute, will you, Mark?
Sure. So, Broadway musicals cost money. They cost $13 million, ours does anyway, $13 million just to get it up and running. Those are all the pre-production costs. Things like building sets, getting contingencies and marketing budgets, that sort of thing. Prepayments for contracts with unions, all of those things. So we needed to raise that $13 million, which we've done via a variety of different types of investors. They're the usual suspect investors, people who live in New York and invest in a lot of these shows. But we uniquely here, because this story has so much relevance to Hawaii, we put together a little informal group of investors called the Hawaii Hui, and we've raised a significant chunk of money.
That's great.
For this show.
So Hawaii has a stake in this, really?
Hawaii has a stake. The Hawaii Hui, all of these investors who have in common a love for this musical and getting it on Broadway. I think we are the single largest financial contributor to anyone in this show. So that's terrific. After that, the weekly cost, they depends on your show, but ours will probably run something about $500,000 a week to keep running. That's paying salaries and general manager fees for selling tickets, things like that.
Theater,
which is very important. It's a chunk of change there. All of those things need to get paid, and those are taken out of the ticket sales. And investors recoup their money by whatever that delta is, the sort of net profit basically between what we sell in tickets and what costs and expenses.
what's your ticket cost in Broadway these days?
So it varies. So everything is a science like anything else. And so, the ticket will have a face value to it. But depending on the rate that it's selling, the general manager will adjust the price of the ticket up or down. So if you want most ticket sales will have a face value of about $60-something on balcony seats that are way in the back to about $160 for center orchestra. But if you are a show that you see is really hard to get, that number will creep up for each of them. So currently we haven't really started our marketing push yet. We haven't really in earnest got the word out, but we're already having enough demand on our ticket sales that we're selling our orchestra seats for $225. Mm-hmm. So, about 30% over face value.
Easily worth it.
Yeah.
It reminds me, nice work if you can get it. Matthew Broderick was playing a long time, and he was totally charming. My wife and I went there our last trip, and they announced at the end of the production that that was going to be the last production. The show had run its course, and the crowd went wild. They were so connected, and they did a standing ovation, went on and on and on and on. But one thing I noticed, and I hadn't seen this since I was a kid, is that those theaters are designed in a certain way where the crowd comes together. Everybody can see. There are no significant obstacles to any seat, and the seats are close and soft, and you feel that you're touching the guy next to you, even if you don't know him. And that touching makes the crowd come together.
Absolutely.
And I can imagine what's going to happen here.
A musical theater is a beautiful experience. It's unique to any other kind of entertainment. It's because, for many reasons, it's because you're in a beautiful theater, like as you say, brings everyone together. It's the fact that that performance on that night that you're sitting there is unique. There is not another performance that'll be exactly like it. It'll be different. The actors they'll feel different that day than they did the night before or the night after, and a different message might come across, but it's going to be unique. And you put all of that together, and the fact that you're right there and you hear a human voice and you're actually hearing that voice, not a recording. You know, not something that's been digitized, it's actually someone's voice conveying that message. Makes it really an experience that's really worth living.
Yeah, right. You never forget.
Yeah, never forget.
Mark Mugiishi, he's the producer of Allegiance, a musical about Heart Mountain in Wyoming.
Wyoming.
During the war. It was an internment camp, and it's an interesting notion to take a play that's so serious, even as you have described the current evolved track of the play, and make it a musical.
Right.
It's a disconnect, and yet I've seen it, and I can tell you it works totally as a musical. Allegiance the Musical, allegiancemusical.com, here on Community Matters, and we'll be right back after this short break to follow through on exactly what's going to happen from this point to that. We'll be right back.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island in the ER position. Every other Tuesday, I get to host a show here on the Think Tech program about healthcare. We call it Healthcare in Hawaii. It's really enjoyable for me to bring other healthcare leaders from around the state to talk about our pressing issues. Hawaii has long been the health state, but we need to keep up the momentum, the inertia, and with your help and with your participation, we can come and share all of the big issues that are pressing day to day. Thanks for joining us every Tuesday, alternating weeks from 2 to 2:45.
Aloha, my name is PJ and I'm the host of Hawaii Sports Update. I am very interested in local sports and that's why I host the Hawaii Sports Update show. I bring in guests from Hawaii, I bring in guests from UH, I bring in guests from the community, I bring in big names, I bring in small names, I bring in all names that are community related and doing positive things, sports related in the community. Come join me every Tuesday at 1 p.m. here on Hawaii Sports Update. You can also join me on my golf tournament, the first annual PJ Sports Radio Show golf tournament. It's going to be held at Coral Creek. For any information, go to Think Tech Hawaii, INC, and friend us. The PayPal and a summary of the event will be right there available for you. And don't forget to tweet us.
Okay, Allegiance, we're back. We're live with Mark Mugiishi. He's an MD here in Honolulu, but he's also a national figure, at least a Broadway figure, a New York figure, but creative on New York, although there are other creators too. The producer of Allegiance, a play about Heart Mountain and the internment camps during World War II and the moral issues involved for the people being interned. The evolution of that play, Allegiance the Musical. So, so here we are, it's August, and you have 2-3 months. What happens in the remaining time? Is it all finished? You don't have to do anything?
I wish that were the case. I'm actually heading up this coming week to just wrap up all the tail ends of the business aspect, make sure all the books are in order and all the investors are properly attributed, and everything, all the contracts are ready to go and everything.
This is the producer's job.
Right. And then actually, the following week after that, we start rehearsals. So that'll be an exciting time where all of us will get our cast together and we'll start, getting the show ready. October 6th, we'll open previews, which that's when we'll put it on for the audiences to start seeing.
Can I go back to rehearsals for a minute?
Sure.
So that must be really interesting. I'm sure you're going to be there, sitting in an empty theater about halfway back maybe, or maybe with the other guys sitting in the forward part. But you're going to be watching the director direct, watching those moves, where they are on the stage, how they look at people, how they deliver their lines, how they adjust the music and so forth. This is like very fine-tuned stuff, very intricate, attention to detail. That must be so interesting to watch a rehearsal come together.
It really is. But, I don't know. I used to be an old basketball coach, right? When I coached for 20 years at ULani, so I like these sports analogies. But a good director is like a good coach, right? They know all of those technical things, and they know where people should be and how things should sound and all of that. But more importantly, they know how to inspire. Just like, a coach, the best, most successful coaches are the ones that can motivate rather than the ones that know exactly where the X's and O's can go. So one of the best things that happens is on the first day of rehearsals, the director will give his vision for the show.
Locker room talk.
Yeah, to everyone, so that it's clear in their mind what our inspiration is for this show, what we're trying to achieve, and that really sets the tone for how things go from then on. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Because they have to come together.
Right.
They have to be a cast, and they have to have the message all together and find the spirit of the play
Correct.
among them. So what is it like to actually encourage, for a director to encourage, you know, a member of the cast? Does he take him aside like on the field, like in sports, and say, you know, if you just do this or do that, it'll be better? Or does he say, I'm leaving it to you. I want you to find your, you know, your niche here, find the right moves.
I think it's both, and I think our director is really good at both of those things. He's able to inspire by, especially since we have such a talented cast, by kind of giving us broad vision and having them find it, but he also is not ashamed to point out that I would see it work out better this way. And you know, our cast, they've worked together before in San Diego, and it worked very, very well, so I'm confident they'll do fine.
You know, there's one thing about Broadway, and I always find this when I look at a Broadway play. It goes to excellence. It is the best.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how they can come together, especially in a musical, with the sound and the music and the moves and the storyline. It's like, how do human beings do this work of perfection? How do you achieve that? How does a director achieve that? It must be, you know, because there's no second best. You've got to be right up there at the top. How do you do that?
Absolutely, you do have to be at the top, and you know the competition, right? There's 40-something shows playing at once, and people come with their $100 and say, I'm going to go see a show, and you need them to pick you. So you definitely do need to spend the time to make sure the whole experience is perfect, right? It has to be, the music is perfect, the story is perfect, the scenery, the optics, the choreography is all perfect, and I think we have, you know, good, terrific aspects of all of that, and I think people who, you know, did choose our show to come and watch would leave feeling like they really spent their time and money wisely.
Yeah, it's an emotional experience, intellectual experience. Somehow, as I mentioned, it's a social experience to be in the crucible altogether. That way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you talked about a preview. What's the preview like?
Yeah, so October 6th, we start previews, so people will buy tickets. They're same price as regular tickets, so, you know, but a lot of people like to see it early. They like to see the show evolve. They want to be first to see it, so they can start it. Critics aren't allowed to review it at that point yet because the show could change if it wanted to, but now in our day and age of social media, believe me, there'll be word out on the street as to whether people liked or didn't like, or what they thought about
that's the way it works,
our show.
yeah.
It'll be all over Facebook. People will say, I went there, it was great. I went there, wow, I don't know why they did that. And all of that, that'll all be out there for people to digest.
That's a difference that we have to, I was telling you about my trip to Tosca, when the crowd, you know, knew what about the play before the opening night. They all knew what to expect.
Right.
And they'd already made their minds up about it. And so with the social media, that changes the whole reviewing process, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And we're lucky that we have George, who's the king of social media,
True,
you know,
yeah.
to help his, you know, steer his fan base towards us. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, critics are still important. You certainly do not want a bad critical review from the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or anything like that. But it's no longer the only way that people get their information.
Yeah. So who is the audience now in a Broadway play? What do you say, 40 theaters? That's a lot of theaters. There's a lot of play happening. Who fills those theaters?
So 60-some% are tourists. They come from outside, and they can come from anywhere from Europe to Kansas to Hawaii now, we hope. A lot of people from Hawaii will come. But that means that a large percentage, you know, 30-somewhat%, are from New York. They're native New Yorkers. And so, you know, you do need to get the local people interested, especially on nights that are not commonly traveled nights. For example, a Wednesday. That's going to typically fill your theater with New York people. So you want, you know, you want a lot of buzz in the local communities as well. So we're focusing our marketing efforts on both, on widespread, casting our net wide to social media, to people from all over the world, but focus directly on New York as well, because I think New Yorkers will like our show a lot as well.
Well, the thing about people in New York is they go to see a lot of shows.
They do.
They're expert on it because it's the most exciting, rewarding experience you can have in Manhattan for sure, aside from eating. But, you know, I mean, if I'm there, I have to see several shows. And when I did live there, I saw several shows, every month or so. And I expect that it's more the case now because Broadway is better now. Broadway is the pinnacle of stage anywhere.
Absolutely. I mean, and right now the competition is fierce. People ask me, what are you afraid of now? I'm not afraid because I think our show is really good, but the biggest threat to our show is the competition. It's outstanding. Besides the shows that have traditionally been really strong and continue to be, like Lion King, Aladdin, Wicked, Book of Mormon, all of those shows that continue to sell out night after night after night, there's tons of really good, innovative, fantastic shows that have just opened, like Hamilton, Something Rotten, Finding Neverland. These shows they're extremely popular and people are, flocking to them in droves. So, we need Allegiance when we open to be part of that conversation of this is the group of brand new shows that everyone wants to see.
So everybody should send this video along, send it around to your friends, mention it, okay? We gotta help Hawaii connect with Broadway on Allegiance. So after the opening, I mean, what's the opening like for you? You're the producer. I know it's going to be a glorious day for you, but what's it like?
It's a glorious day, that you have your first show. There's the adrenaline rush. You can't beat it. One of the interesting things is we have an after party always, and in the San Diego one, the fear of what if a bad review comes on? We had everybody turn off their cell phones so that during the party, no one could be on their phone looking to see, what people said about our show. That's impossible in New York. I mean, everyone's going to know. But that is the big, thing is that everyone's going to come out there, they're going to run to the party, and they're going to be seeing, what did the New York Times say about our show?
Here's the flyer on it. Or that's your website, yeah?
Right.
Allegiance, get tickets now, the story and all that.
And those are our stars right there. You see George and Telly and Leah, and they're amazing, and we're really lucky to have them.
So, how long is the show going to run, Mark?
I hope forever.
Okay.
We have currently a 1-year contract signed with all our leads, and the theater contract is open-ended in the sense that the theater gets paid as a percentage of gross, so they keep you around so long as you're filling seats and selling them, and if you're not, then they start hinting that it's time for you to get out. So, but yeah, we have contracts with our leads for at least a year, but the successful shows run for several years, and of course the really successful ones run for 20 years, and we'd be really blessed if that could be us.
Yeah. And my last question, my most pressing question for you is, when's it going to come to Hawaii?
I think it belongs in Hawaii, and someday we will get it here for sure. I think usually Broadway shows can travel after they've been successful on Broadway for about a year or two. And the reason for that is marketing budget is huge, to get people to know about your show. And it's not something that when you take it on tour to another region, that you can spend that same amount of money to generate the marketing buzz. So really, people have to know about the show before it gets to the local audience.
Yeah.
And the only way that happens is it's been running for a year or two. So once that's happened, everyone in Hawaii knows about Allegiance and they're clamoring for seats. Hopefully we can bring it here, and hopefully people will come and see it.
Everybody I know is going to be there. Well, take camera 2 and leave a message with the audience here today.
Allegiance has been a passion project for me. Started 8 years ago. I think what we have now is a beautiful story about the Japanese-American internment and how it affected one family. And we're going to put that show now on the biggest stage in the world, a Broadway stage. I hope all of you will come and see it because I think it represents Hawaii and things we stand for very well. And you'll know that a big reason why it's there is because of fellow people from Hawaii who supported it as we were getting started.
Mark Mugiishi, he's the producer of Allegiance, and we are looking forward big time to the opening. Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Mark.
much, Jay. Thanks for having me on the show.